meeting as on the CTC website. Item number 2 on our agenda is an opportunity for members of the public to suggest additional topics for discussion or to address topics of interest with permission limited to 3 minutes. Is anyone who'd like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, and that's the Chancellor's update.
I have, summer and fall classes. Dr. Adie, you're going to give us a quick update on where we're at?
Good afternoon. So if you recall, last year we had to, when the pandemic hit, we had to change a lot of classes from face-to-face to synchronous virtual lecture. And so we're almost doing a little bit of a reverse process now. So during the pandemic, we had some courses that were taught face-to-face for special programs, and we are certainly expanding on it this summer, and then certainly also this fall. So students will, in the summer, students will have the opportunity to take 230 courses that are either completely or partially taught in the classroom, which will expand to over 500 courses in the fall. So we are anticipating having quite a few students here on campus. We are not doing completely away with the synchronous virtual lecture courses because we do believe that there will be a component of students that find that very attractive and would like to continue with those. But at the same token, we expect a large number of high schoolers to return to our campus for instruction, and those courses will certainly want to take the lecture courses. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
No? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Adie.
Thank you.
Dr. Garrett, Recruitment Activities, and I think she might say a few words about the graduation ceremony we just had, commencement.
Yes, thank you, sir. Good afternoon. We're going to talk about recruitment activities, but I guess graduation is a recruitment activity also. So I'm going to take a little bit of liberty here and thank all of you for being at the graduation this past weekend. It was a wonderful way to honor our CTC students when they completed their certificates and their degrees. So again, thank you. And I have some updates as far as the numbers go. Pardon me. There was a total of 356 graduates who marched. Between those two ceremonies, 154 of them were the early college high school students. Just to give you a little perspective, traditionally in the spring graduation, we have about 230 graduate. So because of the two different ones and the way we were accommodating people, we had a larger amount this time than we traditionally do. The breakdown, the 11 o'clock, we had 145 graduates, 62 were early college high school. And at the 4 p.m., we had 211 graduates and 92 were early college high school. Chancellor, you got the number, was it, we had a total of 214, you said?
214 early college high school graduates, and 45 of them graduated with honors, 3.5 or higher, and 10 of them graduated with highest honors, 4.0.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible, considering that they're taking high school classes at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
So as you can see, all of them didn't walk. I
Right.
was just giving you the numbers for walking, and the Chancellor gave you the totals for the early college high
And I
school.
think we had over 1,300 worldwide.
Yeah, yes. So we've done a good job this year of helping our students achieve their goals. So on to a little bit about recruitment. Is this what I've got here? Let's see. There we go, recruitment activities. When we talk about recruitment activities, we talk about the expanse across the institution of all the things that we do. And about a month ago, I gave the Chancellor, back up for 1 second, gave the Chancellor a document, about a 4-page document of some of the recruitment activities that we were focused on this spring and a few that we had done in the fall. And he goes, you really should share that with the board. He said, this is amazing, the amount of work that the team has done. But keep in mind, the team isn't just my departments, the team is across the entire institution. And I do want to say that while marketing and outreach listed 4 things that they have done, they are involved with just about every other virtual or in-person activity that my department does, and some of the other departments do also. They support it in so many different ways. But to give you a little perspective about what happens before a student becomes a student, any inquiry that we get is considered a prospective student. Think about that. Anybody that comes and thinks about or asks about it, we put into a database in Target X as a prospective student. And marketing and outreach is responsible for ensuring that that information gets out to the departments and to whoever needs to reach out to that student, as well as they reach out to that or potential student anyway. So that's a big job that marketing and outreach does. And when we think about marketing, we think about all the, commercials and print and all these things that they do, but they really focus a lot on outreach. So thank you, Barbara. Thank you to your team. They are also responsible for ensuring that every high school graduate that applies gets an acceptance package. And they're responsible for ensuring that every high school student gets a letter from the Chancellor asking them to apply and congratulating them for their graduation from high school. So that goes out, and my team there provides that. The other fun thing they do is they go out to Fast Track, and I'll talk a little bit about Fast Track later, and provide T-shirts to every student that applies at a Fast Track high school meeting. You've probably heard a lot about information sessions in the past. When we do the pictures of the month, we have all the different events we show various pictures of, but this kind of gives you a general idea. We have general sessions offered every single month, information sessions about CTC, about how to get in. And then we have additional sessions like financial aid, veteran affairs. We do specific information sessions for each high school. And then we have sessions based on the departments, the individual academic departments also. Those are all recruiting, and here's just some of the dates that we did them, both in the fall and the spring. When we talk about recruitment, as I mentioned earlier, it involves a lot more than just face-to-face time with students. Any time that we talk to counselors or other groups about what we do at CTC, that's a recruiting opportunity. So Student Services listed a few things, including college night, things that they've done that actually might not be directly with a student, but it incorporates a method of recruiting and a way of getting the information out about what CTC can do, and that's a way to spread information. Fast Track, I mentioned that a little earlier. What Fast Track is our recruiter goes out to each high school and meets with the seniors and gets them to fill out an application to come to CTC. And those are called Fast Track events. And of course, they get the T-shirt too when they do that. But here are some of the dates and the activities of that recruiter. Yes, sir.
The high schools that we go to attend, are they just the local ones? Do we go to Lampasas?
If we're invited, we do go out there, if we have an opportunity to, but we also have our dean of the service area, and he's out there quite a bit also. Right, Dr. Ady? Yes. And then we also have other departments that go to the high school, like our public service office. So yeah, my recruiter will go anywhere that is needed, but we also have other departments that go to those other high schools also.
We also have permanent folks out there.
Yes.
Dr. Garrett. Mr. Armstrong, I think we have a representative in Lampasas. You want to cover that? But we also have them in Burnett and so forth.
Just to add to what we're doing in the service area, we have a total of 4 site directors. They report to Dean Rasan Dawson, who you met, I guess, a couple months ago, probably. And so what they do, they work very closely at the high school. So specifically in Lampasas, our site director's office is located at Lampasas High School. So that is very nice connection for us. And, of course, we have offices in Gatesville, in Fredericksburg, and in Marble Falls. So the local site director goes out, works very closely with the schools, because in many cases, the largest enrollment numbers come from the high schools. And aside from that, they have community students as well. So during normal times, of course, they participate in anything that the high schools put on. We have seen that the high schools tapered off in the last year a little bit, the events they did with students, such as, recruiting events and things like of that nature. So, but thankfully, we have folks right on site, and they also visit the outlying areas as well.
Thank you, Dr. Eady.
And
Appreciate
Mr. Armstrong, we're trying to grow that program. We're hoping that under Dean Dawson's leadership, we'll be able to expand that and grow out there, so.
Good, I think it's important.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, we have to serve our full service area. Good point. This is the Ctc Spotlight Sessions, or something new that I didn't even know we were doing. Mariceli Vargas is heavily involved with this, and every Monday through Friday, they have an opportunity for students to come online. Sometimes the sessions are one-on-one, sometimes there's a small group, but they get just to ask any kind of questions they need. They may be just directed to somebody that can help them, or Mariceli is very versed in everything going on at this institution, and most of the time she's able to answer whatever question. So it's just a quick opportunity, rather than them calling and trying to get to the right department, that they can come on and ask any question they want. So every day she's on at 9 a.m. for these spotlight sessions. Now, again, library outreach, and I'm not going to read you all the things that the library does. You've seen pictures of the month of some of the things the library does, but everything the library is doing in outreach is bringing attention to Central Texas College, and that I consider a recruiting event also. But I didn't even know they were doing this. They're doing events that showcase individual departments through the library, and they're showcasing the faculty to help the students feel like they can relate to the faculty, and really look at the faculty to help them address this younger crowd that they're trying to recruit, and help them the younger crowd to identify and understand what a college class is like. So I thought that was interesting, and they do many, many other things. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention what the Fort Hood team is doing out at Fort Hood with the virtual education fairs. And so they've had 2 of those through this pandemic in January and March. So as you can see, all over the place, all over the institution, a lot of people are involved in recruiting, and it's not just the certain recruiters that are assigned to do this, or certain departments. It's everybody, including the Board of Trustees. We're all recruiters, every single one of us. So thank y'all very much.
I'd like to add that, and we always seem to miss this, but I don't miss it. That is, Dr. Carter has some grounds people under Mr. Harmson that keep our buildings in shape and keep our campus beautiful and continue to improve the looks. Those are things that will attract a clientele. They will attract our students, and that's important. And we seem to sometimes overlook even the police department. You know, those police officers are very important. They're out mingling with our students day and night, and they're very important to what we do. I know that I've seen on occasion, I'm sure that you have witnessed and maybe been a part of, where the grounds guys are weed eating something. They'll stop their weed eater, stop their lawnmower, and they'll come over and say hello and wait till you get past them before they start up, or ask a student how they're doing. So it's important.
Yes. When I do the new employee orientations, I always recognize the grounds and custodian people, because they are the #1 people that the students relate to and go to and ask questions of. And they know everything about this campus and can direct students anywhere. So they're my #1 person for helping them, because we're in the buildings. They see them outside. Yes, ma'am.
You're right. You and your team, or the entire school, does so much in the area of recruiting, and do it well.
Thank you.
I want to challenge you to think about a way to engage parents in the community, because parents are really the determiners. They determine where their child is going to go to school, if they can pay for it, or if it's affordable, if they can get the financial aid, whatever. But I want to challenge you. It may take you a year. I don't have a time frame, but I just want us to start thinking about an opportunity to bring parents to our campus,
Okay.
or to a group that they can talk to someone online. Just some way to engage the parents.
My wheels are spinning right now, so good. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'll look into that and see what we can come up with. I know we do have parents that attend many of the sessions, and our graduation information and graduation training was mostly attended by the parents. but that's after the fact. But getting the students in, let me work on that.
I think we can include in the letter, I sent a letter to every student. And the reason I sent the letter was not for the student, because the students don't read letters. They read their iPhones. But the letter would go home and the parents would open it. So we'll be sure to put some language in there to invite them to something, So, yeah. Thank you.
I'm not saying the first time we're gonna get 200 or 300 parents that come, but we have to start somewhere. And I still think in that decision-making, they are, if not the most important person, they are one of the people making the decision.
They are. You're exactly right.
Thank you. Will do.
Okay, sir, that concludes my report.
Okay,
Quite a bit.
thank you for the update, and move on to item number 4, which is the COVID-19 return to campus update. Dr. Carter?
Good afternoon. A year ago, we put together a 6-phase reopening campus plan, and I am so pleased that we are still in phase 5, which began on January 4th. We have since revised it, phase 5, effective June 1, but I'm happy to report that phase 6, where we will be fully operational, our target date is August 23rd, which is the start of the fall semester. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the changes to phase 5, which, like I said, become effective June 1. And so basically we're looking at the summer, and we're treating the summer as a transition period to get us ready for the fall, to get us ready for phase 6 and to be fully operational. So Dr. Adie has already talked about the instruction side of the house, and the big news there is our face-to-face classes. We're so excited about that. It'll be good to have more people on campus. Dr. Garrett in her presentation touched on some of the student support services. We're doing more of those face-to-face. The enrollment center is actually triaging walk-in students, and the library is servicing students. So while it doesn't look like it, many of our spaces are open, and we will continue to do that throughout the summer. One of the things we're really excited about is the residence hall. We are opening the residence hall this summer with some restrictions in terms of capacity, because it is not lost on us that we are still in a pandemic, but we are excited about that. So with that, I'd also like to talk about the workforce. So we will continue to have personnel work from home as well as on site. Those who have been successful working remotely, we are encouraging them to do so, especially if there's no interface with students and other customers. This will allow us to also continue with social distancing and to spread out, so to speak. So with that, we've opened up some of the spaces in the campus center. We've got the dining area that's open. Bookstore will be opening midsummer, later this summer, but prior to the fall. But then also this space that you're sitting in, we are actually allowing external groups to use it. As a matter of fact, Mr. Harmson booked a group. I believe it's the Boy Scouts. He has coming in June, so we are going to begin to open this space up for external events. It will continue to be at the Chancellor's discretion through the summer, but we anticipate in the fall making it available to folks, again, with certain parameters, but we will be operational. One of the things that I shared with my team today, as well as the executive group, is Phase 6 will be fully operational, but the thing we have to understand is that doesn't necessarily mean we will look the way we did pre-pandemic. What that means is we will function in the midst of this pandemic while serving our students with face-to-face instruction, the ability to go to the library, into the bookstore, come to the campus center, and to do the things that they did prior to. It'll just look a little different. Not very many businesses are pre-pandemic, look the way they did pre-pandemic, but they are functioning. And so I appreciate the Chancellor's leadership in guiding us with this very cautious approach that we've taken. And so with that said, many of you have seen the recent CDC guidelines. You hear what's going on at the state level with the governor's executive order. And there's so much information out there. And one of the things that I appreciate about the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is that it does not dictate to us what we should do, but tells us to take into consideration those things and to do what's best for our campus. And so what we will continue to do is employ those health and safety protocols that we've established, but slowly lift some of the restrictions. So one of the major moves that we're making is with the masks. We will only require masks to be worn inside the building. Classrooms, there won't be any social distancing. There's no way that we can achieve social distancing and have a good number, an acceptable number of students in the classroom. So you'll wear your mask inside the classroom, and those students who are not comfortable, any student who's not comfortable has the opportunity to take classes online or do the synchronous learning. So there are many options that students have, and then when you're outside, you don't have to wear a mask. We encourage it if you're in close proximity, but no mask outside unless you're inside a vehicle. So we're going to ease into this. Part of the reason for that is we cannot require anyone to get the vaccination. We were hoping that we could when opening up the residence hall, but we can't, so we have to be a little more diligent. And on that note, Mr. Gonzalez is currently exploring an opportunity for the college to be a vaccination site for a couple of days. So we're hoping that students, faculty, and staff, if we can get that done, that they'll take advantage of that. And so, like I said, on August 23rd, the summer is transition, but on August 23rd, we are looking to be fully operational. Again, don't look for pre-pandemic. Look for fully operational, where we're serving our students as we did before the pandemic. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Carter.
Okay.
Appreciate all the efforts that you and your team has put into this. It's been a Herculean task.
Thank you for your support, sir.
Item number 5 is the My Compass Fast Forward Renewal. Dr. Welch.
Good afternoon. Our contract with NTI is due for renewal. Okay, NTI has the software application My Compass, which CTC rebranded Fast Forward, and the annual renewal cost is $67,500, but that's a 25% decrease from the $90,000 they have charged us in the past. Okay, and what is Fast Forward? Just kind of refresh everybody's memory, and for those on the board that were not here the last time I presented on the Fast Forward, it's the only software application that we have that actually serves the service members and the veterans, okay? With the end of the College Credit for Heroes portal, this is the only electronic application that we have for our service members and veterans, and it allows them to upload their military transcript, the JST, and receive an instant estimate of the credits recommended for their military education and experience. And that's CTC college credits. It's not the ACE credits. It's the credits that we've articulated. And at the same time, they can select a CTC program on that application and receive an online estimate of how those credits apply towards the degree. Okay, so it's a very valuable tool. We use it for outreach and advising for our service members and veterans. It has the ability for the individuals that they want an academic advisor to contact them. They can enter that in the system, and that information is downloaded every week, if not more than just once a week. And that individual is sent to the individual that wants to be contacted is sent to the CTC site that handles that area, okay? And then they reach out to the service member or the veteran. It also has a national job database where the individuals can look for jobs in a specific geographical area. And it also, we load our tuition rates into the system, so a prospective student would be able to see estimate their tuition costs for CTC. And it also has the capability of resume building, okay? And it's one we need is used by our CTC staff worldwide for advising. It's not just used here in Central Campus, but especially at our sites like in the Continental Campus and in Europe and in our service area and at Fort Hood and Central Campus. And it provides an unofficial military evaluation for the service members and veterans. So when we have a prospective military or a veteran that inquires, the first thing they want to know is, how many college credits will I receive for my evaluation, okay? And so we try to send them to the fast forward, especially at the Continental sites. Most of them have a computer set up in their office so they can sit the service member or the veteran down and they can have them download their JST and they'll be able to receive that unofficial evaluation. So it's very important that we have the software application because it provides the unofficial evaluation without a lot of formal lengthy training by our, especially our personnel in the field, okay? And because the student won't be eligible for an official evaluation until they've taken 6 hours with us. So, and this kind of gives you an idea of how many veterans and service members we served last year. Okay, we had almost 3,000 veterans that were just using the post-GI Bill and the VOC rehab, and that doesn't include our Hazelwood exemptions, or our dependents using Chapter 35 or Chapter 30, okay? And we had almost 8,000 military TA students, okay? And those numbers are low because, last year, this is 1920, and so we started out good in the, somewhat okay in the fall, but, with the pandemic, everything just kind of declined. So these numbers are generally higher each year, okay? Do you have any questions about the system? Yes?
Not about the system, but I want to express my appreciation for an excellent graduation ceremony. Would you pass that on to the others, please?
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We were glad to have everybody there, especially when we had 2 graduation ceremonies. It was a lot of effort on everyone's part, just being able to get to 2 graduation ceremonies. But it was very successful with 356 participating marching. It was just wonderful. So thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Since this item will come as a vote next Tuesday, I want to add that this is also, these things that she just talked about, and she hit kind of lightly, are things that we are required to do by our contract with the military around the world. So if we didn't have this platform, we would have to, and she said, train our people. We don't have a lot of people around the world. We would have to hire people and do that, which gets very expensive. So this is truly a godsend for us to have this platform and have it available.
Okay. We will see you next week then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Welch. Item number 6 is the property insurance contract. Mr. Hickman?
All right, good afternoon. Bringing you the property insurance renewal for this year. You should have a memo from risk management in your packet there. Now, our current property insurance contract with Alliant runs out this year. And so we've had to go through the RFP process and come up with bids for new contract this year. Now, this is strictly for property insurance. It renews July 1st. All of our other insurance, all other lines renew on September 1st. So I'll be bringing those to you at a different point later this year. So we've gone through the RFP process, and we ultimately ended up with 2 bids, one from Alliant and one from BKCW. The committee determined that it was in best interest to the college to award the contract to BKCW with their bid for $250,654 for the first year. Now, I do want to mention that that bid includes a deductible for wind and hail damage of $6.5 million. We've reached out to BKCW and asked them to give us a quote for a deductible buy down, where we can pay a little more money but bring that deductible way down. We don't know, we haven't received it yet, so we don't know what that quote's going to be, and we don't know how much it would bring the deductible down. But when we get it, if it looks like it's going to be a good deal for the college, then I'll bring that to you in the future as well. But since we've got to get this renewed and we've got to start it for July 1st anyway, the administration is recommending approval to award the contract to BKCW for the $250,000 for the period of July 1st through June 30th of next year, with 4 one-year option periods as well. So are there any questions about the property insurance? No questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 7 is a funds transfer for the Americans with Disabilities Act project. Mr. Harmon.
Yes, good afternoon. I think I've been here the last several months. Maybe you're getting tired of hearing me in regards to this ADA project. But because we have initiated this project during the current fiscal year, we will need to look at transferring funds from reserves to cover the anticipated expenses. We have the anticipated expenses are around $538,000, and we basically prorated the amounts that we had discussed in prior conversations. So current year expenditures would come from the reserves. Expenditures for next fiscal year would come from recovered lost revenue dollars, and then funding in the future fiscal years of 23 and 24 would be determined at a later date. So as we had mentioned before, this is a project that we need to look at moving forward sooner rather than later because of the timeline. So with that, the administration recommends approval to transfer from reserves the amount of $538,000 for the ADA project so we can begin.
Any questions of Mr. Harmon?
I thought it was $300,000 for this year.
The $300,000 I think was a not to exceed amount for Joel's flooring. So the next topic we'll end up getting into that we were going to look at using 2 contractors, but if you look at the, well, I don't know if you have it, but the estimate for Jamal and Smith for this year was $300,000. Pruitt Consulting, which is the interim licensed architect, was $71,000. Joel Guzman, who is Joel's flooring, was $125,000, and then PBK was $42,000. So each of them has come to the board for approval. The only one that I'll be bringing right after, well, next Tuesday, but we'll be discussing right after this, is the Jamal and Smith. Because of the size of the project, we were wanting to utilize 2 contractors. The total cost of construction that we had anticipated was roughly $3 million is how we were proceeding. And then there was some annual cost for Pruitt Consulting, which was a requirement from the Department of Justice to have in order to validate all of the items. And then we were utilizing PBK for any design issues that were going to be required, whether that was going to be for sidewalks or some other type of design requirement. The ILA would not serve in that capacity. So that's a breakdown of what we were anticipating for this current fiscal year, at least through the end of August.
Any other James?
Well, I don't know if it pertains to this, but I was reading an article in the paper last week about ADA project and DOJ, and does this reflect any part of that, or is that on a different subject?
That's what this
No,
is.
this reflects that Department of Justice work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
This will sew it all up?
Well, this was a result of an audit, was it not, that we,
The Department of Justice, I think it was back in late 2018 or early 2019, when they came out and did a site survey. They surveyed about half of our campus. The dollars that we have here are certainly estimates of that. We still have to have the ILA come back out and survey the rest of the buildings that were not identified in that original survey. So unfortunately, we had just received a laundry list in 3 attachments with all of the items that they had identified. So we've put together a timeline to go ahead and work on that, which is basically divides it over the 36-month period. And so this will allow us to proceed with that work.
So it'll continue for 2 more years after this year.
Right, and in the future, you will see this, and this will actually come up, because I think we had actually put some dollars in the upcoming budget for the ADA project.
So I might have been kind of lost on it, but this all started happening right about the time I came on board here. So, just a learning curve.
Yeah, well, this whole thing is part of a broader initiative that's been around for a long time. It's such things as putting Braille on drive-through ATM machines.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of different nuances involved in this thing. And it's been there for a long time. I don't know what specific nitty-gritty that they got CTC for, but the crosswalks, we've been working on those for a while.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The work on ADA improvements has always been a priority, even before I got here. We've always put money within our capital budgets, maybe not on an annual basis, but on a reoccurring basis in order to go ahead and address areas that are of non-compliance. A lot of times, if we know that a particular building has some particular issues, we'll try to bundle that with a renovation of the building, just to go ahead and try to save the college a few dollars. But I think we, as a college, have always been committed to doing the right thing and working to make sure that our campus is fully accessible. So.
And this will continue. What's the estimate, between $1 to $3 million, Mark, over the?
Yeah, yes, sir. I had PBK take a look at the list of things that were identified, and with some of their help, we were able to identify that the expenditures would be $1 to $3 million. This one here, and normally I'm able to go ahead and bring a more defined dollar range, but because of the nature of how the work was put together, it's almost impossible to really go out and look at getting any type of hard bid. And so we're going to be working with the contractors closely, with the architects, on working on on each of the projects that were identified. So I think we can find ways of certainly trying to value this down, but we'll see once we get into it a little bit further.
Yeah, there were no major kinds of improvements needed, as I remember. We thought there might be, Dr. Carter and I thought we might have to put an elevator somewhere. We didn't have to do that. So these are small kinds of things, but they've got to be worked on. It takes time, and it's going to take money. And right now, as you all know, the cost of goods are sky high. So if you're trying to buy lumber or you're trying to buy parts, some parts aren't even made. So, yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Harmon? Okay, thank you, sir. Item number 8 is the Americans with Disabilities Act Job Order Contract Services. Mr. Harmon?
Yeah, so as we were talking about last month, we had brought to the board Joel Guzman, DBA, Joel Floors, as one of the contractors. We were still trying to identify a contractor that was on a state-approved purchasing cooperative. The vendor that we were initially looking at was not, and so we have identified another vendor that the college has used in the past, Jamal and Smith. So with them, we were looking at a spend of approximately $700,000 a year, $2.1 million. That was over the 36 months. So the recommendation that we'll be bringing forward would be to utilize Jamal and Smith as a job order contractor for the ADA accessibility project. The amount we put down was just $2.1 million, not to exceed, which is the duration over the 36 months. What that does is just gives us a little bit of flexibility that if we can bring, depending upon the total dollars that we have, but if we can bring some of that work forward a little bit earlier and get it done a little bit sooner, that gives us a little bit of flexibility. So.
Any questions, Mr. Harmson? Yes, sir.
On a little different subject,
which sign are you referring to?
The, Central Texas sign that we can help.
No, neither of the signs, we had a specific conversation in regards to the sign back over here, off of parking lot G it is, the large one there. So there were no issues with that one. This one, oh, go ahead.
I'm talking about substituting the bell tower sign.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we've had some of the conversation in regards to, with, the Department of TxDOT. And, the initial conversations that we had in regards to the signage, it indicated that there was going to, there would be no cost to the college. Well, somehow that changed after we had further conversation with them, and they were going to look at charging the college. And I don't remember, it was somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000, I think, to go ahead and look at changing out the signage. So we've asked for we had asked for other options, and at this point, whether we couldn't get them installed ourselves or do some other things. Unfortunately, we're not considered a municipality, and so some of the things that the city of Killeen, Copperas Cove, or others would have some flexibility around doing would not apply to us. And so in order to go ahead and try to improve some of the visibility, especially coming from Copperas Cove, it was when we erected that other Central Texas College sign on the bell tower entrance. So at this point, it doesn't look like, unless we were willing, and with our current financial situation, I don't think we felt like it was the right thing to do at this time. But the TxDOT would be willing to go ahead and do it, but it would cost the college tens of thousands of dollars.
What was that, please, your last statement?
The TxDOT would allow the college to change the name of the street from Bell Tower to Central Texas College Drive, but we would have to pay for all of the signage replacement that would take place. So I'm guessing it's around $30,000.
How much does a can of spray paint cost?
Do you think it might be helpful if the Chancellor would call Representative Buckley and ask him if he'd make a call to the transportation?
I'll be happy to do that.
And if you thought the senator might, I think, right now they're developing the budget. You never know when something might be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened on the TxDOT or TxDOT's side. My guess was that they had overcommitted to what they could actually go ahead and look at doing at the time, which was very unfortunate, because we had reported to the board that we were going to move forward and look at doing that. But something changed on their end, and at the time, and with the added cost, we felt like that wasn't the right time to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Harmson.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is the Lot Vernon and Company contract. Mr. Liberty?
As you are aware, we have currently have Lot Vernon as our current auditors, and their contract ended with this last fiscal year audit that they performed. So we had to go out on a request for proposals, and it's a two-step process for professional type items like this. So you go out with the bid for qualifications, you get the qualifications reviewed, and then after you rank your bids, you ask for prices. So you initially do it without prices being involved. We followed the process, and we received one bid. Now, I will tell you that besides the one bid, we did have 3 other major firms, we're talking national firms that have offices in Texas, reviewed the proposals, because we have an online system, and to be able to look at the system, you have to register, so we know who's been in there. So they registered, they reviewed it, they looked at it, but they chose not to bid. So we received one bid. Mr. Barton and I reviewed those bids. Lot Vernon met all the qualifications that we were requiring in that proposal. So they were selected as the company to go with the second step, which was then to receive pricing. We got the pricing, and the pricing, Dr. Carter and I actually talked about the pricing some yesterday. It's pretty amazing. Their pricing, way back to when the contract started with their current contract ended 5 years ago, 2016, was $67,500. That's what the bid was in 2016. Their bid for the first year of this new contract, which is 2021, is $71,500. That's a $4,000 difference after 5 years. That's 5.9% over a 5-year period, which I can tell you is quite a bit lower than a cost of living allowance. I see all the contracts that come through at the college, and almost all of them are built in with an annual cost of living increase. So this price is well below that. That was for year 1 and 2 of the contract. In year 3, they go up to $74,000, which is a 3.5% increase from that first year, but it's not until the 3rd year. And then for year 4 and 5, they have no increase. I was really stunned with the pricing. I anticipated it being significantly higher than this. So I'm very pleased with this, and because of that, the administration will make a recommendation at next week's meeting to accept the proposal. And I can answer any questions that y'all might have.
Any questions of Mr. Liberty? Okay. And we'll move to item number 10, and that's the fiscal year 2020 proposed budget. Mr. Liberty?
Yes, sir. You should have, I put a packet out in front of you before y'all got in this morning that's got some of this information that I'm going to discuss, so you can reference some of it now or at a future date. But just to remind most of you, because it's a reminder, because we don't really have any new board members, you know, we start the budget process every year, normally in January or February, with Dr. Carter, myself, and the Chancellor, talking about where we think things are going, what we need to do, and where we need to go. You know, this year probably happened a little sooner than that. I think we actually started talking about this budget probably as soon as we finished the last budget, because we were going through the throes still of hot and heavy pandemic and where we're at and where we're going to be. Are we going to come anywhere close? What's the state going to do to us? So there's been a lot of discussion. I know this is the first time we've had a formal discussion with the board, but I can promise you there's been a lot of discussion amongst the administration on these items. So I've listed the 4 or 5 items in here that are the biggest pieces of the pie that we can talk about in this. The other piece that is the major piece are the submissions from all the departments for their departmental operating budgets. Those are all coming into me this week. We sent those out, and if you remember last year when they went out, we asked everybody to cut their budgets by 8%. That's where we needed to be to get our budget close to balancing last year. And I do say close because we didn't quite get there, but we were within $500,000 of balancing the budget last year. So this year, with the items that you're going to see coming through here, and we thought about those ahead of time, with all of those in play, we felt like we could ask everyone to hold the line. We really don't have any room for them to increase their budgets, but they can certainly budget what they had, not ask for any reductions. And what we're trying to do is, if Department A has some additional expenditures they may need, we're wanting them to go through their dean and find Department B and C that can cut by the same, so we can offset it and come in with the same budget that we started with. Now, we are going to allow a few exceptions to that, where the Chancellor has told the Deputy Chancellor if they could bring some items to him that we would consider, because we do have some additional funds related to the recapture of lost revenue from the HERF funding that we received from the federal government as part of the pandemic. So we do have some funds. So there are probably some items that we have put off in previous years that are more critical in nature, that we actually held off and said, we got to do it. We've got to bite the bullet. Let's make it happen. The Chancellor is going to consider adding some of those back in this year, and we will use some of those HERF dollars to offset those. So that's just the background before you get to these other items. The first item that I have here to talk about is appropriations. And you can see from the appropriations that what is in the current appropriations bill with the state, and it's not final with the state, but it's not going to change very much. This number is going to be very close to what ends up being the final number. It is about $1.5 million less than what it was the last biennium. So we are having our funds cut by $1.5 million each year of the biennium. However, and I'm going to say however a lot during this presentation. If you'll remember last year when we were putting this together, we anticipated that they were going to cut us last biennium. Even though the biennium had passed, we said, you know what? We've seen it before. So when we built the budget, we already took into account what we thought they were going to cut us by. So this cut that they're doing now, we had planned for that the year before. So the current year budget that we're operating with right now actually is at $14.4 million of projected revenue for appropriations. We're receiving more than that, but the nice thing about that is, even though they are cutting our appropriations, it's actually more dollars that was built into the budget in the current year. So even though it's a net cut, it doesn't hurt us on the budget side of the house because we had already planned for it and we'd put it into the current year. So it's kind of an anomaly that worked that way, but it's a nice thing. The next item is taxes. You know, the same type of thing happened in taxes. We knew what we were going to receive as far as a levy, but we were concerned with if we were going to collect the levy. You know, with everything going on in the pandemic and all the horror stories that we were hearing early on, is people weren't going to be able to make mortgage payments, which means folks weren't going to pay their taxes, and we were concerned. So when we built the budget, we actually reduced what we were going to collect, you know, in the levy by about 8%, because that was an educated guess. Well, the best thing about that is we have received every penny of the levy. Everybody made payments. So I think we are a different community here because of our close ties with the military and with government employees. And as you know, very few of them lost revenue related to the pandemic. Military retirees all still got paid. The military all still got paid. All the folks that work for government still got paid. So everyone obviously made their tax payments because we collected all of our tax money. So that's great for the current year. You start looking at the next year, and the first thing you look at is what's going to happen, where are we going to be with our tax rate. Well, the initial appraisals that I got back, which were the preliminary numbers from both Bell and Coryell County, showing almost 8% increase in the appraised values. Now, once again, that is before anybody has protested or appealed, and it's before some of the new exemptions are in place, because as you know, every year there's more people that will file for a disability exemption. People have disability rates that change. So when you break that number down, that comes to about $7.7 million, $770 million of increased property value. Of that, 229 million of it was new property, and the remainder of it, 540 million, was increased values, increased appraisals. So almost everyone who had a house or a piece of property on that roll, their values went up. So we anticipate, when all's said and done, and it will be 2.5 months before we know what the real number is going to be, but we anticipate the no new revenue rate declining, and it's going to decline significantly based upon these increased appraisals. We're currently at 1218. My first swag is 1152, but that's not knowing what the appeals are going to be and not knowing what the new exemptions might be. So that means we can choose to adopt that rate, and it will bring in the same amount of money for taxes on all the property in the current tax year that was on the rolls last tax year. So it'll bring us in the same money. So basically what it's supposed to equate to, and of course it doesn't hit it perfect, not everybody's is exactly the same, But for the average taxpayer, the amount of their appraised value went up, their taxes will go down by the same amount, and the net effect of their tax should be flat. We will receive an increase for all those new properties. And that number is estimated to, if we go with the no new revenue rate, generate about $250,000 of increased revenue for the college. That's what we're recommending as an administration on the initial stages. When we come back to you, obviously we'll have to make it official. We'll have to have a meeting, we'll have to vote on it. But our initial recommendation is that we go with the no new revenue rate, which will in essence lower our tax rate, but it should net effect of 0 on the taxpayers, to where their property value went up, but their rate's gonna go down, so what they're paying for Central Texas college taxes should remain the same. We feel that even though we're working our way out of the pandemic and everything that's going on, why pile on at the current time? And at the same time, we do have, thanks to the federal government awarding us all of those HERF funds, we've got the revenue that we can use to offset this. So that's why we don't anticipate recommending any type of tax increase to the board. And I didn't mention earlier, and I apologize for that. You guys, I'm so familiar with everybody here, like we're family. You have a question, ask it anytime. Stop me anytime you want to. Please, if anything comes up for a question. The next item is tuition. Dr. Ady made a nice presentation about changes that we were making. We do feel like going to more face-to-face classes will help bring our enrollments back up. I'll share with you some of the stuff that's on that document, though, as a reminder. When we were building last year's budget, we started thinking about what we thought was going to happen with our enrollments due to the pandemic. So when we built the budget, we built it with a decreased enrollment level of 20% in mind. That was what our projected number was, 20%. And I'll tell you, we get it right every now and then. We've been doing this for a long time, Dr. Carter, myself, and the Chancellor. And actually, through the fall and the spring, enrollments are down 19%. So we were pretty close with what we did. So when we put those estimates in place and we lowered our revenue amounts and we asked everyone to cut their budgets, those two things came in line pretty close with what we were looking for. I think we're going to see enrollment start to go back up, like we said, based upon everything that we're doing and us easing out of the pandemic. The summer, and the numbers that I saw this morning before the meeting, we're up 1.5% compared to the same number of days in the enrollment period from last summer. So that already shows that we're moving that direction. However, me being probably the most conservative guy in Central Texas, I don't think we should increase our estimates next year yet. I think we can still balance this budget by leaving our revenue projections exactly where they are now, because even though we're seeing an increase in the summer and we're seeing everything move out of the pandemic, some other countries have already started to see a spike, and we've seen some issue with those new variants in the disease. So let's be conservative and let's budget flat. And if we come in here and the fall numbers are up 25 or 30%, then congratulations, we have some extra revenue that we can deal with at the time. But it's a whole lot easier to do it that way than to budget for a 3 or 4% increase, spend the dollars, and then try to get them back if you don't hit that number, because you can't get them back. So our current plan is not to ask for a tuition increase and to budget the tuition revenue exactly flat in this next year's budget. Okay, those are three of the semi-mundane things. The next item is probably the most important asset that we have at the college, and that's our staff. As you well know, over the past probably 5, 6, 7 years, we have almost every year implemented some type of fiscal constraints since the first year the Chancellor came appointed as the Chancellor. Even prior to that, when he was acting, we started, and I don't know, he still acts every now and then, but we put constraints in from day one.
Well, you said staff, you meant faculty and staff.
Absolutely. When I say staff, sir, Bob Liberty, I'm an accountant.
All inclusive.
I'm an accountant, I'm talking about everybody that gets a paycheck.
It's
from
being
Central-
recorded, I
from-
wanna be sure.
From Central Texas College. They can all call me, they know my number. They're included, they get a paycheck, and they all look exactly the same. They all come with the same signature on it, yours. We put things in place to keep the college whole and to protect the college. We eliminated capital expenditures. We eliminated increases. We shut travel down. We made all of these things over the past 6 or 7 years that we put into place as different things were hitting us along those lines. We started to see decreased enrollments because of the competition that we were getting from not-for-profits. We started seeing decreased enrollments because of the global war on terrorism. If you'll remember, the government started spending more money for bullets and beans than they did for education. So they cut back on how many tuition dollars that they were spending. They put a cap on how many. So as all those things started happening, for us to protect the college and to keep us strong and to keep us whole, we started delaying items that were critical, to include freezing positions, not necessarily filling new positions. When we did fill them, we pretty much make you do a pretty good song and a dance to get a new position approved. So even though we do approve them, when we see they're necessary, we take a long time approving them, so we save dollars that way. We're to the point now to where, to continue to protect the college, we've got to go the opposite direction, and the administration feels we need to start taking care of all of those things that we shut down related to the staff. As an example, the CPI has increased 12.1% since the last time we granted an increase to our scales. The scales have been exactly the same since 2014. We haven't changed our scales once. However, cost of living has gone off 12.1%. When you look at the other large employers in this area, the ISDs and the military, almost every year they've awarded some type of CPI increase. So we feel like we're getting behind. And this is the time where Holly, the Chancellor, anyone may chime in if I miss one of these items related to this, or if they have another example that they can think of. But we are finding it more and more difficult to recruit and retain the quality staff that we have. We're losing people. People are deciding that there's other places they can work for a few extra dollars. When we try to find new folks, if we get lucky enough to get applicants, because right now we're having a hard time to get applicants, period. We're competing against folks that are paying more than we are, so it's very difficult to get folks hired. So we're recommending that we increase this pay scale by 8%. We want to make an 8% increase to all the pay scales. That's everyone we have. That's the hourly pay scale, the faculty pay scale, the salary pay scale, and the part-time instructional pay scale. That also includes the pay scale for Continental and International and Navy employees. We don't have near as many of those. They're all paid off of our hourly and our salaried scale, except for their part-time instructors. They're on a different scale, but we are building this budget with an 8% increase in mind to all of those scales. The only ones that we're not making a change to, and we just got them on a new scale recently, is Europe. And there's kind of two reasons for that. Number one, they're on a contract, and that contract was built at a much different rate. And if we put a significant increase where we didn't have it priced in, Europe will have even a harder time in balancing their budget and to running in the black as they currently do. And any of y'all who have looked at the financial statements over the last 2 or 3 years know that they're already a long ways from getting to the black. So we determined we would not increase those scales at the present time. We hope that that will help us continue to protect, as I shared, our number one asset, which is our faculty and staff. We don't want to lose people to other places, and we want to continue to be able to recruit and retain them. You know, I've had many conversations over the years with Holly. When we get a good applicant Everyone's excited about the applicant. It gets to the point where Holly offers them the job based upon our pay scale, and they don't even consider the job because of the offer that was made. So it's time. We've got to make it happen. As I shared with you guys earlier, I'm as conservative as it comes, but it's time to make this happen. We also want to include a one-step increase for all of our employees that are eligible. COLA just kind of catches you up, and once again, we're still not getting all the way back to the cost of living. As I shared, it's 12.1%. We're going to increase the scales by 8, so we're making up for 3/4 of that. Then we'll put a one-step increase in there, and if you look at that total combined cost, that will cost us in the current year a little over $4 million. Now, we are able to do this along with these other things that are in the budget and still be able to come with a balanced budget because of the fact that we're going to be able to recapture that much money plus through lost revenue that was awarded to us in the HERF grant. I've been running that calculation since day one of the pandemic. I actually worked it backwards because until about 2 months ago, they didn't tell us we could use it for lost revenue. There was a very strict guideline that we could use it for. About 2 months ago, they came in and said, well, you can also start using it for lost revenue, come up with as long as you have a calculation you can defend. So I came up with an idea, Doug looked at it, we all feel comfortable with it. So from the first day of the pandemic through the end of the last financial statements I prepared, which were March, we've got over $14 million of lost revenue we can recapture. Once we recapture it, we can use it for whatever purpose we want to. It's not tied to anything specifically related to the pandemic once you recapture it for those reasons. So that's why this is the perfect time to make this happen, because we have the dollars to do it in the current year without raising taxes and without raising tuition. Now, we anticipate, once again, that those tuition numbers are going to be well above what we budget, because we think as we come out of the pandemic, even if we get back to where we were pre-pandemic and we don't even look at an increase, we're assuming a 20% increase, because that's where we've dropped, was a 20% decrease. If that comes into play, when we look at the budget from a year from now for 2023, there probably will not be a need to increase the tuition rate at that time either, because of the fact that we will have all those additional enrollments. However, if that's what we need to do after we come out of the pandemic and there's no more of these HERF funds from the federal government, that's what we'll end up having to make a recommendation to do to continue to run at a stable financial rate. Now, we haven't increased the tuition rate anywhere near at the same rate that the cost of living has gone up either. And when you look at those numbers that we get every year from the state, we are still in the bottom quartile of what the other community colleges charge. Our closest brethren is Temple, and we are significantly less than Temple when you look at our tuition rates for in district compared to their rates and the different fees that they charge. So we can stay there and hopefully stay there for the next several years, but even if we have to increase, we'll be in a position to where I don't think it's going to cause us any issue to increase, because we're still going to be significantly lower than most of the other community colleges in the state. The last piece that I have here was the item that Mark had already talked about, which is ADA. We're talking about almost $1.3 million that's going to go in the budget next year for those ADA items. And once again, we are going to be able to use recaptured lost revenue to offset those funds. So we're not having to dip into reserves to get those dollars, and we're not running a negative budget. We're going to be able to use the recapture of the lost revenue to do that. So all of these things put in place, excuse me, are about a $5 million increase to the budget, but we will recapture $5 million of lost revenue to offset that. So the bottom line should remain fairly consistent to where we are right now. And then, as you also know, the last financial statements that I presented last month had us at a bottom line of a little over $1 million. And I know the budget for the whole year was projected to be about a $500,000 loss. Well, we're not through the summer yet, and as you know, the number keeps getting smaller as you creep through the summer. But we always, I'm not gonna say always, but almost always will end up with a better bottom line at the end of the year than we budget for, because there are many items that we budget for that just don't get spent. We have positions that we budget for that we can't get filled. You know, Dr. Carter talked about having a discussion this morning with staff, but one of the things we talked about was the position she's trying to get filled that's been open for quite some time. I have a position of mine that's about to come open, and I don't have any applicants. We have several others that we have delayed hiring for various reasons. So we will see the bottom line that should end up better than what the budget year was. And the only caveat I'm going to throw into that is, if nothing crazy happens with those two GASB 68 and 75 entries that Doug and I have to deal with at the end of the year, which are paper entries. No money comes out of our pocket, but it's a paper entry that can make our bottom line either look better or look worse. So those are the main items that we are looking at right now as we start building that budget. As I said, all of those departmental requests are rolling to me. They started last week. The rest of them will come through. And there might be many more items that we bring to you after those start coming in, but that's currently where we stand. Like I said, I anticipate mid to late July getting a real number from the Bell County Tax Appraisal District that will do the official calculations, that we will then have to have a meeting and make an official motion and an official vote. But at the present time, the administration is of the position that we're going to recommend that we will adopt whatever the no new revenue rate is. Yes, sir.
Last year, as James and I had just come on the board, I think that was our first meeting. We sat down, and I'm away from all my records, but we sat down and considered a pro-pay or what was it that we passed? We passed out some money as in addition to wages and so forth.
Well, what we did last year, and we didn't do it as part of the budget process, because what we did was maybe what you're thinking about is we awarded a performance
Yes.
award. We did that in December based upon the previous fiscal year and how strong the bottom line ended up. When Mr. Beebe actually came out of retirement for a hot minute and sat in the admin building for a while and worked as the acting deputy chancellor for resource management, we actually came up with a number that we needed to achieve before we would even consider awarding any type of performance bonus. We hit that number, so we made the recommendation and did it. This current budget has no funds in there for that.
Okay, so we didn't do any rate step increases, and did that take any of the pressure off hiring? Of course, it was not a continuing plan.
That had nothing, that didn't do anything with hiring whatsoever, because all that did was it awarded current employees for what they had done in the last several years, because we hadn't awarded consistent step increases over the last several years for successful performance of their job. We've been holding the line on those. So it helped current employees, might kept a few of them around, but it didn't really take any pressure off of the hiring. We're hoping that this change to the scale will. You know, one of the things, you know, Holly sees this stuff a lot more than I do, talks to the people more than I do. And one of the things that I will share to you, as it stands right now, our entry-level position for our lowest level employee out here is $8.52. With the increases that we are building, that will now move to $9.20. Holly says going over that $9 number is like magic for those people. She says there's something about that $9 number. You know, that's great. That's wonderful, that we're able to make this increase. That is, as you know, above the current minimum wage. But for how long is $9.20 going to be above the current minimum wage? We have no idea when that's going to change. Before too long, I'm convinced in Texas we're going to see 10. We're going to see at least $10. Well, at least we've already made this move now to get us a little bit closer. It won't be as hard to bite it in the future. And then you also have to remember some of these people that will be competing and will be asking to come to work for these $9.20 an hour jobs. There are contract jobs at Fort Hood that pay $15, because that's the new minimum rate that's going into effect for them. So we're still gonna be competing with those. The only good grace we have is there's not everybody can get one of those jobs. There's only so many of them to fill. So that means we may not get the top applicant, but hopefully we get a qualified applicant that's willing to come to work for these amounts. You know, many places are starting to already increase their numbers. You know, there's so many places now that you can go in and their starting pay, we're talking in some food service jobs locally are going to $9 an hour to get people to come in to work because they're having a hard time to get them to work. So we feel if we don't at least make these efforts, we're gonna have, the staff that you do have is gonna run ragged, because the one thing I can tell you about the folks that you have working here is they're gonna make sure the job gets done, and we're gonna have people working their fingers to the bones to get 2 and 3 jobs done. And folks can only do that for so long.
So we may not have adjusted the scale since 16, but we have done things for our people.
We have done some step increases. It's been, we've done 3 increases in the last 7 years to step increases. Yes, sir. Which
We kind of backed into it.
we have backed into it in the current year. We have been, you know, the biggest increase you have anytime, because the biggest expense you have besides major construction is personnel and benefits. So we have been holding the line as tight as we can on personnel and benefits to ensure that we continue to be competitive and continue to operate without running deficit budgets. And now we're to the point to where we've got to go the other direction, and we've got to make an increase to these wages so we can continue to keep the quality people we have and recruit new ones.
I want to echo what Bob said. You know, we, for the last 7 years, at least for the last 5, I have held everybody's feet to the fire to hold all of these expenses down. And I will continue to do that, and we've done that to protect the institution. But now we got to protect the best resource we have.
So when we pay attention to our politicians who are talking about free community college, employer-provided health care, and those kinds of things, are you where I am? We're just going to have to wait and see what they actually pass as opposed to what they're talking about, because the devil's in the details?
Well, absolutely. You know, first of all, this isn't the first time we've heard free community college. We even started hearing it before Mr. Yiannopoulos became the chancellor, and him and I used to laugh about it quite often. And in the early years when he was the chancellor, he said, great. He said, Bob, I guess we're just going to have to start hiring free employees, because if we're not going to get paid, how are we going to be able to pay our staff? Now, we know that's a joke, because the federal government is going to come in and take care of all those costs. Well, as you well know, they'll take care of a piece of them, and I promise you, they can tell you it's going to be free, but politicians love to write checks that someone else pays for. And that's very similar to what happens to us at the state level. Right now, we're currently funded at 22% of actual costs at the state level. When I first started working at the college 32 years ago, it was 75%.
Right.
So they've gone from 75 to 22. If the federal government comes in and becomes magnanimous and tells everyone there's going to be free education, I promise you they will not fund it at the full cost. It might be free to the student, but they're going to have us figure out how we're going to come up with the difference. And the only way to do that is to find other revenue sources, or to cut your costs somewhere, which when you're already as bare bones as we are, that means you lower the level of service. And I know that's not the intention when they talk about this free tuition. We all know what the intention is, get reelected. But it's going to be quite difficult if they ever do pass that, sir, because it will not be fully funded. There's no way.
And we've dropped in the last year and a half, I'm on some boards at the coordinating board, we've dropped from 24% to 22% just
Right.
in the last year and a half.
Correct.
So it's continued to drop, and the comptroller is still looking for money, so.
Well, one of the things that we've got to wrestle with is keeping this barrel open. And I don't know how we do that unless we can keep good employees. And I'm talking about the very basics here. The people who pick up the trash and people who cut the grass that make this campus look good. You can't forget about those people. That they have this problem of going to the grocery store and finding that a box of H-E-B vanilla wafers has gone from $1 a box to $1.44 a box. You go to the gas pump and it went from $2.20 down to $2.65. They've got to pay that. So where does that money come from? So we've got to do something. We've got to adjust our sights here. It may mean increased taxes, increased tuition, I don't know. But for right now, I think we can say a way clearer to adopt some of these radical changes, if you want to look at them that way. Even at an 8% cost of living increase, we're still not breaking even with what has happened over time going back to 2014. And the people that get hurt are they're not necessarily the adjunct professors or the professors or the chancellor. It's the little guys. It's the guys that make this thing happen. So we've got to do something. And I'm all for awarding pay for jobs well done. And I think we all must agree that on this campus, consistently, the job is well done. Albeit we still have a sinuses bell tower drive, and I'm not counting that. But we still have people who got there doing work every day. And if you come on campus and just look around, and they're there. So we need to put some more money in the paychecks, and this is one way to do it. Now, the problem with this raise is it doesn't go away next year.
That's correct.
We're buying this and we're stuck with it from now on. So you gotta take that in consideration, and you also have to open your mind up that they may cause some increased things, not this year, but next year, like taxes or tuition or cutting back on something else. We've got to balance the budget.
You're awfully astute. What do you think the real CPI number is?
For right now,
Yeah, the real number, not the government number.
double or triple what it's out there, sir. I know that I've seen it. I am, first of all, my wife hates going, and second of all, she works weekends, so I'm the chief grocery shopper. And as Rex has pointed out, I can see just in the last 6 months what things cost at H-E-B. There's pluses and minuses to having a pretty good memory. And one of the minuses is when I pick something up, I go, there's no way I'm going to buy that at that price. That's not, it's almost 30% higher than what it was just 3 months ago. I think it's double or triple. They love to play games with that. And a big piece of that number has to do with housing costs. And it's tough to get those real housing cost numbers, especially when you're looking at folks that have mortgages. Most of that's not changing until the taxes come into play, and a lot of times they take the taxes out of those calculations anyways because they don't consider that the real cost of housing. So I think the real CPI number currently is going up a whole lot faster than what they're putting out. It's also fairly antiquated. That number, that calculation hasn't changed in quite a few years, and what used to be your high-end items are not necessarily your high-end items anymore. And there probably needs to be a change in how that calculation is made. So when they ask me to come work for the Treasury Department at some time, maybe we can get that number reevaluated. But
I can tell you for a fact, since I'm in the construction and remodeling area, I'm dealing with every month 3% and 5% increases in cost of goods.
Yeah.
And I have to factor that into my estimates to my customers, along with paying my employees a very good wage, because I pay my employees very well. And then I'd cut estimates to customers, and they look at me like, why does it cost so much to do this project? And you're like, can you please go down and just take an expensive trip through Lowe's and see what the price of lumber has been? Because I can tell you right now, a sheet of OSB went from like $14 a sheet, and I think it was like close to 40 the last time I saw it. I bought a 2x4 for $8 a stud last week. And I was like floored, because just about a month and a half ago, it was like close to $5 a stud.
Now, they went from $2.13 to $6.42 in about 3 days.
Yeah.
It's going fast.
Prices going
It's
up.
ridiculous. And those costs are going up faster than anything else right now, but they're gonna continue. It's gonna start hitting everything else, because if it happens in one place, it ultimately affects everything.
Right.
And it's gonna get even worse when they do pass the increased rates for minimum wage. You know, those folks that aren't at that number, they're so excited because they're thinking, wow, I'm gonna get this huge increase. But what they forget is, every place that they go buy something, they got that huge increase, and they also have to continue to make their same profit percentage.
Right.
So it's gonna go up more than just that $4 of wage rate. They add on top of it. So
That's what you have to consider here is, you know, we have taxpayers that we're responsible to. And it's all cool that if you pay someone to mow the grass $13, $14, $15 an hour to cut grass or paint stripes or whatever, and build projects around the campus and stuff. But when you say, well, right now we're in a good position, but you're like, well, we have to raise our property taxes to pay these bills. And you're like, whoa, why? And it's like, you gotta explain to them like, well, all these people got a very large increase in pay, and we have to justify it. And that's the part we have to, as representatives to the communities out here, both Coppers Cove, Heights, Killeen, and Nolanville, we have to sell that to them, but they're gonna want some type of justification back.
Well, now you can brag about it.
You can brag about it.
Yeah, we didn't raise taxes
We
and we
didn't
didn't
raise
raise
taxes.
tuition. I'd like to, just in closing, General Weaver, you know, I guess your question was, can we sustain this in the future years? And I'm of the belief that we have the leadership of this institution in place that can do that, and they will do that.
And you have through the last years of conflict. We learn from history, supposed to.
Yes, sir.
And I'm in the process of rebuilding a fire-damaged home to follow on behind James. And not only is everything more expensive, but to even get anybody to give you a bid,
yes, sir.
you have to buy the materials now and store them at their house so they don't get stolen. You have to prepay and buy the materials now, so anybody's even brave enough to give you a bid.
To find workers to do the work.
Yes.
Well, with the current wages jumping up with the federal government to $15 an hour, and we're hit with that every day. Dr. Carter's operations in Europe and with the Navy are hit with that every day, and all the sites that Dr. Ady runs.
It's not just Fort Hood. You have
it's
to remember.
all these other places, Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, wherever we're at. But we run that risk, but we've got to maintain these employees. I think KISD pays bus drivers like $15 an hour, and I think Coppers Cove is trying to get to $15 an hour for a bus driver, and our lowest wage is $8.56. We're trying to get that up to $9. So I just think it's something that has to be done, and we can't back away from it. So we totally support that, and I feel confident that this administration will be able to maintain that in the out years.
And on a positive note, lunch was fine today.
Sir?
And on a positive note, lunch was fine today.
Yes.
That's not on the agenda, sir.
That's comments from before the.
Okay.
Which leads us to item number 11, which is recommended topics for upcoming agenda
Bob.
items and announcements. And
That's it.
there you go. We have an announcement about lunch today.
Lunch was good.
It was outstanding.
I don't have
Colleen?
anything. Nothing.
No, sir.
No, thank you.
No.
Okay. We have no reason for an executive session today, and that leads us over to adjournment. And we will have a meeting next Tuesday, May 25th, 2001. And we'll have it says the annual board meeting. I looked that up, and it's a monthly board meeting, I believe. Anyway, we're meeting next week, and there's we get to vote on the things we talked about today, so keep that in mind. Also, if you have anything on your heart about the budget, go talk to Bob Liberty. He is one of the easiest guys in the world to talk to, and if you've got some burning passion, there's some way that you express to him, he hears you. So we're in the process of thinking about the budget. We haven't adopted the budget yet. We're getting close to it. So I asked them to bring forth this information today to think about. Let it germinate. Let's see where we can head and what we can do with it. And remember, our obligation is to do the best we can, not only the taxpayers, but for the college and the students that come here and the faculty that teach them. That's what we do. We look at the bigger picture. And with that, the board workshop for June the 15th, where we get to discuss everything coming down the pike. No other comments or suggestions. I'll take a vote for adjournment and vote with your feet.
Amen.